The card grading community has this belief that these new PSA labels hold a premium over the old ones. I think it's a little naive, and some history with regards to other collectible hobbies that have grading elements would speak to a counterpoint on that. And I think it's a really interesting point. It's today's topic. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, Dan the Cardman back again. Welcome to another video. Very glad to have you here. Thanks for joining. Now, today's video is pretty exciting. It's a video I've wanted to make for quite some time, and that's why I think there's a bit of a play when it comes to buying old label PSA slabs, when it comes to collecting and investing your cards over their new label counterparts. Now, I've had this thought for quite some time, and it's always shocked me to see things like this in the card grading hobby, where you have, this is a really good example, you have new labels selling for such a significant premium over their old label counterparts, 33% in this case. Both these LeBron James Topps Chrome Refractor rookies sold within a day of each other, right? And it always shocked me to see disparities like this, because you see it pretty consistently on eBay, you see it pretty consistently in card shows and on card show vlogs, that people will opt for this, pay premiums, or even always buy these if the same price. When you look at the comic book collecting community, which I'm a part of because I've collected comics my whole life, as you can see behind me and things like that. I collect everything else you can see behind me. So I always found it a bit strange when comic books, old label CGC slabs, CGC being the premier comic grader, sell for such a significant premium over their new label counterparts. And it always surprised me for a few reasons. Or the main reason why it surprised me was that the reasons for that valuation being placed on there by comic collectors should be the same thing for card graders, right? And we don't see that here. We see the opposite. And it's always really baffled me why that is the case. But when you think about the actual reason for it, it makes no sense, okay? And there's a bit of a play there with the old label stuff. Obviously, these new PSA slabs are so much better when it comes to the anti-fraud protection, so you always want to try and pick one up for that reason or get your old label re-slabbed. But given there's such a price disparity, like I just showed you, and it's pretty consistent, you could probably pick one up and maybe get a better graded card, even though they have the same grade on paper, than what you actually paid for. And to give you some context, the reason why comic collectors essentially landed in this point was because they saw that over the years, as CGC became less and less personal with their grading, personal in the sense that the team was obviously quite small back in the day, and they went through this boom associated with the Marvel movie boom 10, 15 years ago. They started getting so many more books in, they noticed that actually, it looks like on average, maybe the gem mint rate, their equivalent of gem mint rate, was going up. And it became so pervasive within that hobby that people were eventually like, well, hang on a minute, CGC have maybe dropped the ball here. Maybe not with every book they grade, okay? But for the most part. So you as a collector wanting to buy a high-end book would often then go to the old labels and pay more for a 9.0 in the old label than people are charging for a 9.8 in the same book. And this, the premium that was on those old labels was immense. And it was pretty amazing to see. And the logic made sense, right? Because like I just said, you had a company 15, 20 years ago, or 20, 25 years ago now, or maybe later because they established in 2001, I think. It's 21 years ago. Much smaller back then. Obviously, they made mistakes, but they were much smaller, so they were very experienced graders after they got established as a business. Not many books were coming in, so I was spending more time looking at the books that were coming in, which meant they had more hands-on time when it comes to grading, which meant that their QC was probably quite good, or maybe it is the same level now, but they just had less pressure on them to get things out the door, so they didn't make any mistakes. Whereas now, because so many books were coming in, and they had to hire new people, it made it harder for them to maintain that level of QC, so things that maybe slip through the cracks. And what often happens is you see people busting 9.0 slabs from 20 years ago, 15 years ago, okay? Getting 9.0s, or they were 9.0s, and then they hand them internally at 9.8s. So the market eventually realized that was the case and started charging a premium for those books, and people started paying them because in general, CGC were just better back then. Now, the logic, so with that in mind, when I came to go heavy on my card collecting and started chasing graded cards, because it's only a new thing for me, and when I say new, I mean 5-6 years, I've always had that in mind. And then I just assumed that people would have the same thing, but it just hasn't caught on yet. And I've always thought it was a bit surprised. And I know plenty of people that get these old PSA slabs and get like a PSA 9 and turn it into a 10 more often than they don't, okay? So that was always a bit shocking to me. And the logic should be the same thing, right? PSA back then were a much smaller business, very personal. Obviously, they had issues with the Wagner when they first started, but once they were established as they got their operating rhythm in the groove of that, right? And they were established, maybe on average, okay, they're better graders. Well, they are better graders now in general, right? But the average grader looking at cards isn't better than what they had in the past. And because they've had to take on so many people, it's been hard for them to maintain that. And you can't call me a hater for that, because it's pretty evident with their QC over the last 12 to 24 months that they've made so many mistakes. There's so many cards that very clearly you see on eBay have either been undergraded or overgraded, wrong label, card upside down. There's so many things that have gone wrong that sort of justifies that logic, right? So this essentially just comes back to you as a collector buying the card, not the label. If you see an old label PSA slab, right? And this is the point I'm trying to get to. If you see an old label PSA slab and it's a 9, okay? And it's significantly cheaper than the new label counterpart, do your due diligence. Actually look at the card, because you're silly for not picking it up. And even in this case of this LeBron James, it's mind-boggling that there's an $8,000 price difference. Like, why wouldn't you just buy that card for 16 grand and send it in to get reslabbed in the new one? You just made 8 grand out of nothing. Like, do you understand that logic there? Like, even if you don't get a better grade for sending it in to try and get a better grade, you're still going to get a new slab. So why is there such a price difference? So things like that are a bit concerning. But if you're somebody that's looking, okay, to make an investment, okay, let's say you don't want to get that, or let's just say there's a huge disparity. Like, you've got 10s in the new label, and then you've got a 9 in the old label, and the price difference between those two is significant. When I say significant, I mean like 50, 60%, or maybe more, maybe 400, 500% with some cards that go from 9s to 10s. I think if you do your research, you look at the card in detail, you trust the seller, I think you're silly, because there's a good chance you could turn that into a 10 under the modern standards. And I think what's happening in the comic industry, or what's happened in the comic industry, is a good testament to that. Even though they're very different things, comic grading is far more complex, so it's easier for them to drop the ball. I think they're very comparable, so I think there's a bit of a play there. I'm very keen to get your thoughts down in the comments below to hear what you think. I found it just a bit strange, my whole card collecting, when I've gone for graded cards, right? Like, I've always tried to get the old labels where I can. Now, you have to trust the seller, because it's so easy for people to fake the old labels and old slabs. But if you trust the seller, or if you can look at least the card in person, you're in with a shot. If you don't trust the person, don't even bother about this methodology, because it's not going to work for you. But it's just something to keep in mind. And I'm very keen to hear what your thoughts are, because like I said, so many people don't value it at all. They think it's just inherently stupid, when that's not the case at all. And the experience and explanation I just gave you with what happens with CGC, which has very clearly also happened to PSA in recent times with their QC falling, like the video I touched on the other day, there's a bit of a play there, and I think you're wasting money by not at least looking into it. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Sorry, a tangent a bit there, here and there. I've tried to explain these multiple times before, but it just hasn't hit with people, so I'm very keen to get your thoughts. So please share in the comments below what you think, whether you think I'm an idiot or not, what you think is a bit of a play. At a minimum, okay, this example I just showed you with this LeBron James, you saved 8 grand on the old label, send it in for a reholder, they don't charge 8 grand to get that done, right? And you've just made that much money. So it's just a bit shocking, but let me know if you've done similar things in the past. If you picked up old labels and got them regraded and got a higher grade. I know plenty of people that have done this. So I know it works, but I'm keen to get your thoughts. I'm keen to get a wider sample base. So let me know. Please like the video. Please follow me on Instagram. Please leave me a comment, because I love chatting with you guys. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.